Hello, everybody. This is Howard, the Teaser King, coming to you with my Thanksgiving uh, videos. Hope everybody has a wonderful holiday. I'm going to have 3 or 4 games going Thanksgiving, and along with my regular thing, I'm going to talk about my pro game on tomorrow, Thursday. We got Chicago, Detroit, Washington, Dallas, Atlanta, New Orleans. Chicago with the quarterback out, but I still like the Bears, even with Chase Daniel, who I thought was a great quarterback at Missouri, and thought he was, I didn't understand why he wasn't starting, and then he was behind Drew Brees, and definitely is better. He's 100 times better than Josh Allen, Sam Darnell, any of these rookie, Lamar Jackson. I mean, it's not even, this guy's so much better than all those guys. He's somehow been a backup, but it does not relent to his ability. Let's break down the Chicago-Detroit game. Chicago's laying 3 over under 54.5. 45 and a half, roughly 45, 46. In the series, the head-to-head, Detroit-Chicago, twice a year, when the game's in Detroit, the favorite is 10-1. Chicago's 9-2. Detroit's 9-2. 5-0 the last 5. The dog is 9-1 the last 10. In the series, the favorite is 19-3 the last 22. 14-0 the last 14. The Bears 2-3 weeks ago in Chicago as the favorite won. I almost locked that one. I had it very, very strong in multiple teasers. Chicago even. I thought that was a joke, and they usually won, even though they missed 2 or 3 field goals. Something with the Lions this year. Green Bay's kicker missed 4 field goals and an extra point, which blew that game for him. The Bear kicker missed 3 field goals and an extra point. Excuse me, I have a little cold and I'm medicated. I don't get why all these kickers are hitting uprights when they play the Lions. I would think there's something going on, except for this. The Chicago one was in Chicago. Even last week, the Carolina kicker hit an upright and missed a field goal or 2. So there's a big trend on the favorite in this series. And the more I'm seeing what's happening in the NFL, the more I'm looking at, is it the quarterback or is it the system? In college, Texas Tech scores 100 points a game. Oklahoma scores 50 points a game. Oklahoma State. And it's more or less the system, right? Except for Mahomes saying, it ain't the system, it's me and the system. And I'm seeing that with San Francisco. Here they sign Garoppolo, and everybody thinks he's great. And then here comes the guy from Iowa, Beathard, and he looks okay. And then he gets hurt. And then the third string guy, I can't even think of his name. He looks like Jeff Driscoll. He looks like a superstar. So I'm starting to think, this is the system. They're flooding zones. There are guys underneath and guys crossing and guys going across the middle to clear out and throwing dumps back. And, so I'm wondering how much is it the quarterback. Now, Mahomes, obviously Alex Smith could not do what Mahomes did. He never did it in Kansas City. So there is a bit of the quarterback. Joe Montana with the 49ers did it and really wasn't repeated. So it was kind of the system, but Joe Montana. When Brady moves on, you'll see it was Brady mostly on little of the system. I don't even know what the system is in New England. It's Brady getting rid of the ball quickly, throwing short dumps, and then hitting Gronk and hitting the backs out of the backfield. So There really is no. It's all Brady there. So I get to Chicago, and Trubisky's not that good. And he only played like a year at North Carolina. Um, so I'm sitting there going, is he that good, or is it the system? And that's what I think. I think it's the system. I think Chase Daniels come in. He's a pro, and I don't see a big drop off. But I am getting an extra point and a half because of the line going from 4 to 3. Maybe you can get a 2.5. If you could, I would buy it and go from 3 to +3 to 3 plus 3.5. I still like Chicago here because let's look at Detroit. They lost Golden Tate and Kerryon Johnson's out. They really don't have anything else. If we look at the defense, the Bears' defense is 20 times better than Lions. Quarterback, Stafford, is he better? He's better when we're down 30 and he drives them down to score. But when the game's on the line, he doesn't. He didn't beat Carolina last week. Carolina drove down and basically tied the game. And for some stupid reason, I've never seen such dumb coaches in my life as I'm seeing now. And I've been watching football, and like I said, I watched Vince Lombardi, and I was real young. But basically, you kick the extra point because the odds on getting the 2-point conversion are maybe 20-25%. So it's not like I can kick the extra point and tie, but my odds are really good. I'm going to make the 2-point conversion. That's bullshit. The 2-point conversion are not easy. I would like to see more Quentin Flowers type come in where the guy can throw. He's a quarterback, but he's very shifty. And you don't see, they leave the quarterback in, right? So instead of getting Cam Newton out and just hiking the ball to McCaffrey would have been the thing, and let him try to throw a pass so he can run around. That's what would have been a better play. That way you have 10 blockers. Why do you need Cam Newton out there to throw an incomplete pass? The guy's wide open. So I question the call because I think you got to go and take the tie. And then if they drive and beat you, they beat you. But if you don't lose it on a 2-point conversion that you don't make, I think that's absolutely a terrible call because it's not easy. It's not a fourth down, but it's like that. It's do or die. It's one play, and you've got to tie the game when you can because that's 99% automatic. Although, we see they've been missing the extra points. Excuse me, and it's different when the game's on the line. They're not missing an extra point, but I'd rather go and tie it and then say to my defense, okay, play defense now. That's just my thought. I hate the overtime rules in both college and pro. I think they're stupid. College is ridiculous. Here's the ball at the 25. You just played 60 minutes. I would just like the game to end in a tie or kick off, and if the team, scores, they win. And if they don't score and they got a punt, then the other team scores, they win. It should be sudden death. It should never be, here's the ball at the 25, and they score, and the other team gets it, and then they score. And then they keep the ball and do it again, and the defense is exhausted. You're giving them two chances. I mean, what is that? Who's thinking of this stuff? I mean, the stupidest overtimes. The pros, I mean, it's sudden death. If you're going to have, you don't need overtime. Let the game end in a tie, but if you're going to have, if you, God forbid, need a win, which you don't, you've had 60 minutes, but if it's tied, then sudden death. Team that scores wins. And don't give me this bullshit, well, they didn't get a chance. Well, they could have played defense. If the defense can't hold them, why is that the offense's fault? That's the defense's fault. And, you don't need to get it because Peyton Manning cries because Brady beats him. I just hate that kind of stuff. It's so stupid. Anyway, so Chicago -3. Let's get into some more trends. Sorry, I like going on my thoughts carry me. Okay, so Chicago, as a road favorite this year, is 3-0. Overall, they're 10-0. If you bet Chicago every week, you've won every week. 10-0, and that's the beauty of the teaser. When they were losing to New England by 6, they covered. when they blew the game against Miami or something, they still covered it. Even though they're up big, that's the thing. That's why you try to get over 3 in the teaser. If you bet against them, they're 2-1 as a road favorite, 8-2 against. They play mostly close games here. Like the first meeting with the Lions, they won by like 8 or 10, and the spread was 6, so 12 and the Lions won, but the Bears even won. The Lions as a home dog, 2-0, 7-3 overall, 1-1. If you bet against the Lions as a home dog, it's 1-1 this year, 7-3. 1-1, 2-0 doesn't really mean a lot. 3-0 for the Bears means a little bit. The 10-0 I like. The 3-0 says, yeah, they go on the road and they cover. Well, that means something because it's very difficult to do. The only other team doing that is New Orleans and Pittsburgh and San Diego. So it's extremely difficult. Even the Rams are 4-1 as a road favorite. So you have that. So let's go to 17. The Bears weren't a road favorite in 17. They're still 3-0. But now they're 22-4 against the number of the last 2 years. That's 85%. So again, betting against them as a road favorite, still the 2-1 because they've only been the road favorite this year. The Lions 6-0 as a home dog, 4-2 against. So you can see the last year and a half as home dogs, they've been good. They'll keep the game close. 4-2 against. So generally they're close games. Go back to 16. The Bears 3-1 as a road favorite, 3-1 against. Again, it's not their norm. They're not normally road favorites until this year. Detroit 8-0 as a home dog, 6-2 against. So Detroit is sticking as a home dog. We'll go back one more year. I think there's a good trend here. Here's where it starts getting. Detroit's 10-2 as a home dog, 9-3 against. Detroit 14-3 against as a home favorite. So Detroit is 23-6 against at home. Chicago's still 3-1. I mean, they haven't been good, and they haven't, they haven't been good as a road favorite. Now, if I go back to 2012, which is just, research, it's not really, I would look at as evidence now. They're 9-2 as a road favorite. So historically, they've been a good road favorite. Detroit 13-3 as a home dog, 13-3 bet against as a home dog. So they play close games at home. It's not like they're blowing out teams at home. Then it would be 13-3, and it would be 3-13 if they were blowouts. When I go into the stats, Chicago. Now here's what I really like. They score 29 a game, and they give up only 20. It's a very strong point association. They run for 122 a game. They throw for 250. So that's very strong that they can run and keep balanced. The problem with some teams is they'll throw for 300 yards and they run for 50, and you're like, well, we'll just play them for pass. And those teams never win. You have to have balance. You have to have the defense on their heels going, are they going to run? Are they going to pass? We can't stop the runner. Here he comes throwing the ball. Detroit scores 22 a game, but their defense gives up 26. So they're actually a -4. They give up more points than they score. And here's what I'm talking about. They only throw for 260 a game, and they only run for 100. Now let's cap that on with their best runner being out, Kerryon Johnson. That's going to drop to 50. You've lost Golden Tate, so now he's got nobody to throw to but this Galladay. Well, the Bears will take care of him. What I like in this game, and the reason I'm not shying from Chicago, is strictly you've got this defense that's going to eat up Detroit. Minnesota sacked them 10 times. When's the last time you've seen a quarterback sacked 10 times in a freaking game? In a game. And then Chicago got him 6. And then watching Chicago the other day against Minnesota, they killed them. I mean, it was just a fluke at the end where Minnesota came back and scored. And to tell you the truth, I had the over in the game, and I'm going, I'll never get there. I think it was like 6-0 late in the third quarter. I think it had gotten to 17-0. The Bears started scoring, and I go, well, I need 3 touchdowns. I'm never going to get there. And then all of a sudden, field goal, touchdown, 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 turnover. And I got over, which I was absolutely stunned. But it actually was an over game because Minnesota's an over team now. Their defense is injured, and they throw a lot with Kirk Cousins. They barely ran Cook at all, so they become a passing team, which is what I'm talking about. When I look at Minnesota, they run. Where are they? They're the ones who throw for 294 and they run for 84, and you wonder why they have problems. The numbers tell you everything you need to know about the team. The best team, New Orleans, throws for 300, runs for 130. KC 315, they still run for 117, and the Rams throw for 314 and they run for 144. So you can see why they're the best teams. And then you look at Pitt, they throw for 322, but they only run for 97. If they can get their running up to $1.25, nobody will beat them. But that's, and they got Connor, and a lot of their passes, these short little passes in front, they're calling passes instead of runs. So that's a little bit in Pittsburgh there. But anyway, back to the story. So you have this team with this killer defense, the Bears, but they can score. So against the Lions, giving up 26 a game, Chicago will move the ball fairly easy, even with Chase Daniel. And, I mean, you watch even college, right? And the quarterback's out. Oh, I'm going to bet against this team because the quarterback's out. And the new kid comes in, throws for 300 yards. What game was I betting on? And the kid comes in. I don't remember off the top of my head. And I go, I'm going to bet against him. And the kid comes in and throws for it was Michigan State with Rocky Lombardi. Comes in against Purdue. First game ever. And he throws for 330 yards. It's like, really? He's never played before and he throws for 330. Chase Daniel's been in the league 10 years, has played, was outstanding at Missouri. They averaged 45 points a game with Chase Daniel. They just didn't have a defense at the time. But that's a classic case of a good quarterback, no running, and you tire your defense out, and that's really what happens. I'm not worried about Chase Daniel and Trubisky. Yeah, I'd feel better with Trubisky in, but with Chase Daniel, I'm not too concerned. I'm still getting 3 points, 3.5 if I can. So I don't see an issue there. On the site, I actually have -4 plus 2, I think, or 3.5 plus 2.5. But when you make your bet now, it could be 3 or 2.5. But don't get too caught up in Chase Daniel being this terrible quarterback, and they're not going to get a first down, so I got to bet the Lions. Remember, the Lions do not have Kerryon Johnson and or Golden Tate. And with that being said, against this Bears defense, good luck, Charlie. The defense is still there. The running back's still there. The coach is the one, it's his offense and the play calling. And Chase Daniel plays like he's starting every week anyway. I don't feel like they won't get a first down because they got a terrible quarterback in there. So I'm looking at take Chicago plus the 3.5, and I think they'll still win by at least 14 points. Over or under, I would say that Chicago might get a little bit less aggressive, and they might turn it into a defensive, like, we got a great defense, let's let the defense win. So I would lean a little bit more towards under, but I don't. Chicago's still going to score in the 20s here. In Detroit, they'll score some because of Stafford, but he gets the garbage touchdowns. It's 24-0 Chicago. Stafford will march him down the field, but it's 24-24. They'll put pressure on him. He'll fumble. So that's the Stafford thing. All right, the second game I'm giving you this Thanksgiving is New Orleans and Atlanta. Let's go inside the numbers. I got New Orleans laying 13, over under of 59.60, somewhere in that price range. Let's look at in the division trends. The dog is 10-1. Atlanta 9-2 in New Orleans, and the dog in the series, the last 10 is 10-0. New Orleans is 9-2 at home the last 11 years. There's not a real big trend the last 5 years. This is not a New Orleans play. I know Atlanta's banged up, and otherwise it's in Atlanta. The spread's way too high. You cannot bet New Orleans in this game. It's the NFL. Yes, New Orleans looks good. They just score touchdowns the whole game. I get it. Atlanta can score too. They're not that, it's like when they played Cleveland and said, well, we weren't really up for the game. We took them lightly. They're not taking them lightly here, and it's Thanksgiving. However, do I really want to screw with New Orleans and take Atlanta in 19? I'm thinking about it, but I think I found a better way. When I look at the over-under, let's look at the over-under here. New Orleans scores 38 a game, gives up 24. So they'll give you up. Their defense is not aces. It's pretty good, but it's not great. They throw for 300 yards, rush for 130, total 434. So I get they're going to score, and they're going to score lots of points. And I understand that. That's the idea here. Atlanta, they score 26 points a game. They give up 28. So they got a terrible defense. They throw for 332 a game, but they only run for 88, which goes back to my premise. So they're basically a passing team. 421 is their total. When I look at, to look at the quarterbacks, we already know, right? Matt Ryan's number one in the league, throwing 71%, 330 yards a game, 22 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And he's been sacked 27 times. Okay, what's the most? There's a 30, there's a 36. So there's some that are in the upper 20s and 30s. Let's go to Drew Brees. Throws for 296 yards a game, 25 touchdowns, and 1 interception. There'll be fireworks here. He's only been sacked 9 times because they can run the ball. The defense doesn't know what to do. He reads in the box. If they look like they're blitzing, he hands off to Kamara. Matt Ryan doesn't have that luxury. He probably throws a lot of short passes to the backs. When I look at the runners, Todd Gurley's number one. Wow, Todd Gurley, I don't even have updated because he played Monday night, and I pulled my stats Monday, and he had 1,000 yards at that point. So I don't know what he got on Monday, but that was a lock. I had a 21-star lock last week. I lost the first half of it. I won the second half at the over in the Ram KC game. And my point of the team is the lock, not the teaser. I had Kansas City and 3 other teasers. So they're a lock team. So when you look at my picks and you see the teaser in the first game loses, the second game is still a lock. Both teams are locks. So the over in the Ram KC game was still a lock of 21 units. And you saw I had it in at least 3 other teasers because it was a joke. There was no way they were not going to go and hit. I think I needed 57 or 58. They were 30-30 with 7 minutes left in the third quarter. I mean, it was a joke. Now you had your turnovers there. I think you had a pick six and a fumble recovery pick six, or 2 pick sixes. I don't know, but that's really how you get there. But they scored enough to get to the 100 with or without the turnovers. They were getting there. So let's see, who am I talking about? New Orleans, Atlanta. Let's see. Do either of them have a running back? Tevin Coleman has 500 yards, which is nothing. And Mark Ingram has 388 because he splits time with Kamara. There's Kamara, 617 yards. He's got 11 touchdowns, so he's the ace, which is good for the red zone. So basically, I could go through the stats, and they're all New Orleans when I look at the trends. 3-1 is a home favorite, 9-1 overall. Atlanta 1-1 is a road dog. They've only been a road dog twice. Atlanta's 9-1 against this year, so they're a good bet against team. New Orleans 11-1 is a home favorite. 2017, 2018, 24-4, 86% if you just bet on New Orleans. 8-4 against is a home favorite. So not all games at home are blowouts. Atlanta 4-2 is a road dog. Nothing spectacular. 23-5 against, 82% overall Atlanta. We'll go back one more year to 16. New Orleans 15-3 is a home favorite. This is why I had New Orleans as a lock last week. And my other lock was New Orleans with San Diego, and New Orleans won by 100 points. That was the easiest lock I think I've ever done, except for the Ram game the next night. 38 points, 38-6, 86% New Orleans. Atlanta 9-3 is a road dog. Let's go back one more year. Atlanta 12-4 is a road dog. Let's go back to 2012. Atlanta's a decent road dog, but this is the problem. I am not messing around betting against New Orleans. Rule 1, you do not bet against the best teams or the hot teams. New Orleans is hot. I have no reason to bet against them. But here's my problem with Vegas. They're making the spreads unbettable. What does that mean? My one friend who's in Vegas doesn't quite understand when I say that. The object is to make the betting even. So you put out a line that people go, I'll take New Orleans and I'll take Atlanta. This line is not, I'll take New Orleans. This line is so high that they don't want to lose with betting on New Orleans. And I don't believe it'll get even action. I believe the line should be 10. And then you'd get a lot of New Orleans money, or maybe 10.5, and then you'd get the Atlanta money. The 3 points doesn't help you get any more Atlanta money, and it pushes people away from taking New Orleans. Even in a teaser, I'm laying 7. This is the NFL. This isn't Texas Tech or Oklahoma. I'm not messing around with the 7 point. What did I tell you in the somebody KC played Arizona, right? And they're laying 16. I told you it'll never get there. The big lines never get there. And what happens is they didn't get there, right? They won by 10. Here's Kansas City puts up 100 points on the Rams and beats Arizona like 26-14. So they ran the ball more. They knew they were going to win. They didn't blow them out. And this is where you wonder about fixed games and all that stuff. Why didn't KC put up 40 points on a very weak Arizona team? And that's my point that you got to be careful with. So here, what I'm saying is, you got 13 points with Atlanta. You can get 19 in Atlanta. That line is not to make the betting even. And this is why I worry. So, again, I don't want to screw with New Orleans. So that leads me to over-under. Well, I am not betting under on New Orleans. You got to be out of your mind. Maybe if they played the best defensive team, and the best defensive team in the NFL right now is Baltimore, gives up 18 a game. Tennessee 19, Dallas 19, the Bears 20, Washington 20. So maybe if New Orleans played Dallas or Tennessee, you might probably more against Dallas because they could run Elliott. Otherwise, there's no way in hell I'd be betting an under, or they're not going to score. So, in my mind, the only way to play this game is take New Orleans over. 59 goes to 53. Let's look at what that means. 28-24 is 52. That's a very easy number in this game. So let's look at 35-28 is 63. Your over-under is 59 before the teaser, down to 53. So if I get 31 from New Orleans, I need 24 from Atlanta, and it's a winner. The way Atlanta looks, I think New Orleans gets 40. I think Atlanta gets in the 30s. I think the 19's probably good, but I don't want to mess with it. You never mess with the hot hand, right? If black comes up 100 times in a row at roulette, I'm playing black. I ain't playing red. And if back rack, if the bank comes up 10 times in a row, I am not playing player. I'm going to play bank. That's why I do pretty good at back rack. I just follow, if bank, 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 I'm betting bank. Player, 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 I'm betting player, and there's no thought process. There's no hitting soft 16s. There's no, you got a 16, the dealer's got a 20. You can bet on the dealer in back rack. That's what makes it the best game to bet. Because I can bet either way. Where in blackjack, if the dealer's hot, I'm screwed. And I don't like betting against a hot dealer, right? I don't want to go against New Orleans. In back rack, I can go with New Orleans and in sports betting. So the spread's too high to go New Orleans -7. I can't trust Atlanta in 19, any team that loses to Cleveland. But I think what I can trust is Atlanta scoring and New Orleans certainly scoring. There's no way New Orleans will score less than 35 in this game, which means I need 53. I need 20. 35 to 20 gets me 55. There's no way this game does not hit 35 to 20. In fact, it'll probably be 42 to 31 would be my guess in this game. You're not shutting down Atlanta. Matt Ryan's too good. I get New Orleans. Their defense is looking better, but that was against. See, here's the problem everybody looks at. Well, they blew out Philly. Well, Philly doesn't have a running attack. They don't. The receivers aren't very good. Carson Wentz isn't very good, and their offensive coordinator went on to Minnesota. And now I'm becoming more and more aware of it's an offensive coordinator league, right? The Ram coach was the offensive coordinator at Washington. They looked really good. Then he goes to the Rams. The Rams go from scoring 5 points a game with Jeff Fisher to putting up now at 30 points a game. And Washington can't score 20 a game. So now I'm beginning to understand it's the coordinator, not the coach. It's the system, not the quarterback. Unless it's a Brady or a Rodgers, they can run in any system. So, happy Thanksgiving from the Teaser King. 11 unit play. Take Chicago plus 3.5 in the teaser. Even with Chase Daniel, it doesn't matter. Take New Orleans, Atlanta over 53, 54. It'll be at least 35-20. It'll be more than that. It'll be 40 to probably 40 to 30, 40 something, 44, 31, somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't think they'll cover the 19, but I am not wasting money betting against New Orleans, even though it's Atlanta in 19, which is a huge number. And yeah, Julio Jones and Ridley, and I mean, so they'll score a lot on them, but good luck. I am not messing with that. But what I like about New Orleans too is they'll go for it on fourth down, but they'll get it, and they'll score. I mean, they didn't let up against Philadelphia, right? They put up. What was the score last week? 48-7. I mean, here you go. They against Philly, who's got a fairly good defense and not a really good. They put up. It's a 55. With Atlanta, you know you're going to get more. All right, they played Dallas 22-19. There you go. Dallas is more of an under team, held them to 19. But even if you look at it, so New Orleans scores in the 40s. Atlanta got 19 on Dallas, so you know they're going to get more on New Orleans. They don't have as good of a defense. So they're where you're looking at it. And that's one thing Teaser King does a lot. When I pick a game, I look at how they play strong defenses. If I'm looking for my offense, if I'm looking at an over-under, I'll look and say, well, they scored so many points. Like, take Alabama. I did my Alabama LSU tape, and what did I say? Well, they played, everybody gave up 30 points a game, so Alabama hadn't played a good defense. Then they play LSU, who gives up 20 a game. They only scored 29. Then they played Old Mississippi State, who only gives up 13 a game. And they showed you why they only give up 13 a game. And Alabama only got 24, and they got their quarterback knocked out. They blitz and everything else. So when you're judging it, what you're looking at is, how did Alabama do against Mississippi State? That's the measuring point of how strong Alabama is or is not, or what they're going to do in the playoff. I mean, they could lose to Auburn and they'll still be in the playoff because it's really a fixed. It's not really a playoff. It's just stupidity. It's Alabama and a couple other teams every year. And Alabama could lose 5, 6 games. They'd still be in the playoff because they'd be the best 5 team, and they'd go ahead of all the. I don't get why everybody looks at, well, they lost a game or two and they're not a good team. If you play a tough schedule like LSU, you're going to lose a few games. If you play like Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State, Wisconsin, Purdue, you're going to lose a few games. That does not mean you're not a good team. If Clemson played that schedule, they'd lose a couple games. If Notre Dame would play the Big Ten schedule, they'd lose a couple games. I mean, look at it. If Notre Dame played Clemson, one of them would have a loss. They're still good teams. How are they not good teams if they lose? If they play a really good team and lose, why are they now a bad team because they have a loss? And what if you play 2 of those really good teams and you lose? Or you can play like Alabama and not play any good teams, and everybody just assumes you're the super team. So this is my whole thing about it. But that's what you're looking at. You're looking at against weak. You're looking at against certain teams. So, I'll look at the Lions. How have they played strong defenses? Well, they didn't score against Minnie. They barely scored against Chicago. So that's what I'm looking at. And against the weaker teams. So you got to take away the weaker teams because they don't have a good defense, and how do you do it? That's why I keep locking against Cleveland. Their defense is not very good. Their linebacker's been out, and he's their best player on defense, so I've been just pounding them, and they give up. Any good pass, San Diego, Kansas City, these teams just blow them out, and the spread's not adjusted, so I'm laying 2 points, 1 point with the San Diego's getting points. I mean, give me a break. Cleveland's not. I don't know why everybody thinks Cleveland's so good, but, they're not. They're better without their coach, but they're still a lousy team. They're getting better. They're getting better players, but it's pro football. Everybody gets hurt. Until you build it up and then start playing a little better, it's not done. Now, Anyway, so that's what I'm looking at. So happy Thanksgiving against 11 unit. I wish Detroit was the favorite. See, if Detroit's favored by 3 over Chicago, that's a lock. Chicago and 9. Even if they're favored by 1.5, I can get 7.5. That's a lock. That's the difference between an 11 unit playing a lock. I love the matchup. I love the Chicago defense. If they were getting points, it would be the lock. The same thing with Atlanta, New Orleans. If the over/under was 50 instead of 59 or 60, and all I had to do is go over 44, that would be a lock. So the spread normally makes the lock, and that's what I'm looking at. I've got, those 2 games. I'll have a pick on Washington, Dallas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know about that. 6. I have 7 really strong games, and not counting these 2. So it's a good week for Teaser King. Here's where my trends and my stats really help me, because how many people know that Kansas City's 11-0 this year? Okay, everybody probably knows. How many people know Indianapolis is 9-1 against the spread? Houston's 9-1 against the spread, and Seattle's 9-1 against the spread. Everybody knows the Rams is 10-1 and New Orleans is 9-1. How many people know the Bears are 10-0 against the number? Okay, that's what the Teaser King knows. How many people know Philadelphia is 9-1 against? Everybody knows Cleveland's 9-1 against. But how many people know Oakland's 9-1 against? These are the things that, by keeping track like this, and nobody keeps track of teasers but that I can see but me. So, it gives you such an edge. Like we're talking here, New Orleans 11-1 as a home favorite, 24-4 the last year and a half. So when you bet New Orleans at home like we had them locked against Philly, when you see that, and it's not 50-50. It's 92% of the time, New Orleans is a home favorite. They win and they cover. And that's the whole point of it. And the reason it was a lock last week was Philly, if you bet against them, was 9-1 on the road, or 9-1 against. So here's Philly 9-1 against. At the time, Atlanta or New Orleans was 8-1 with. So you had 8-1 against 8-1. You had this team that's a great home favorite. Now Philly was a decent road dog, but not the way Philly's playing now. They're still not, the spread's not adjusted, and that's really where I excel, is finding that bad spread, and that's what I'm doing here. Chicago should, if Trubisky played, should have been a 10-point favorite in this game. Okay, maybe 7 because it's Thanksgiving, but the short week will not hurt because it's a holiday, and the Bears want to show how good they are. Look for the Bear defense to get 6-7 sacks. Without Golden Tate, without Kerryon Johnson, Detroit is going to have a hard time. They won't score more than 10 points. Chicago get in the 20s, even with. I have no problem with Chase Daniel. Like I said, he's much better than Josh Allen. If Buffalo was smart, they would have taken Chase Daniel and made him their starter, not trying to get Josh Allen, who's terrible, who will never be a good NFL quarterback, and drafting him in the first round. What a huge mistake. That GM should be fired. Has no eye for talent at all. It's funny. They're listing Josh Allen is probable this week, and I'm going, boy, that makes Jacksonville look a whole lot better than if he wasn't playing. I mean, they're much worse with Josh Allen. I don't know why they think he's any good. But anyway, there you go, Teaser King. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. www.teaserking.com. Have a great Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.